The wind is rustling and I'm sitting here in this beautiful setting. I can barely believe my eyes and my ears. It's just paradise here in Okinawa, Japan. I ended up here quite intentionally, and I shall get into the nitty-gritty of the story as soon as I pass this introductory phase. I'm on a light working mission to bring more light into Mother Gaia, and as my family and myself awakens to the frequencies within and without this quantum verse, within and without Gaia's surface, and within her core of the two-dimensional frequency, much has shifted and much has changed upon our arrival onto her surface as awakened beings of galactic light, of intergalactic communicatory light signals, and UFO strategies of communication throughout the quantum verse as they reach down into our core, into the very core and very being of light workers united in our mission, in our fight against the darkness within and without the quantum verse that is as much intrinsically a part of ourselves as the light has been built into our being, hidden underneath all of that darkness that we've been traversing for eons and eons of evolutionary feats upon Gaia's surface and within her core of all beings. As her planetary feat is a story to be told that is far better left for another date. As the story is long, the story is wide, the story cannot be told in a single video, ladies and gentlemen. And for this video, I choose to stay on trajectory, to stay on topic, to stay within the introductory process of this video as to why our family landed here in Okinawa on our light working mission. You see, a long time ago, during the inception of Gaia's core strength and her core energy and her core frequency and the frequency within and without her quantum field of allowance, it was decided by her being upon free will, along with the agreeance with source consciousness as an entirety of a whole, that she would traverse the trajectory of the two-dimensional frequency and the three-dimensional frequency of consciousness, of allowance, of her consciousness to be suppressed within this mesh, within this frequency, within the quantum verse, to allow her inhabitants to traverse upon her surface and within her core to you may hear the intercom right now. I'm not sure what they're saying. It's purely in Japanese. Okay, they've announced that the pool is open officially, which is strange. We've been here for a few days and perhaps I haven't been outside to hear this signal, but definitely in the room, I'm not able to hear it. And by this time, I'm in the room still. So upon Gaia's surface, and excuse the interruption there in frequency, upon Gaia's surface and upon her core, it was decided that the physicality of Gaia would remain within the two-dimensional and three-dimensional frequency of a God's consciousness within the quantum verse, within the scales of light versus dark. She had chosen upon free will to traverse the darkness of what is, to experience that of the light peeping through the darkness in a whole trajectory upon her plane of pure separation antics, pure separation energy, pure separation strategies. It has brought our humanity to this point where we had been allowed to traverse upon her core and upon her surface in a way that had allowed us to go through eons and eons of evolutionary journeys and lessons to get to this point within a humanity field that transgresses all knowing, into the essence of who and what we've always been, that transverses all energetic frequency to flip her being upside down. Onto her tiptoes, had she had any toes, onto her bosom, had she as she's always carried this light within her bosom of all bosoms, and within the physicality of her, within the physicality of this experience, this game that we have designed for ourselves, to be able to drop down so far from our core consciousness of light, to discover the darkness within and without our being, but traverse upon her surface in physicality to do such feats, to acquire and accomplish such entities and such energetic feats. We had to have dropped down into physicality, into a separated state, into a separation energy, upon her core and upon her surface. And Gaia so bravely decided to volunteer to become the portion of our consciousness that would project itself away from its home, that would quarantine itself within its own little bubble of consciousness within the two-dimensional frequency, that would be able to hold all of that and more, that would be able to hold parts and pieces of our consciousness, fractaling out into this quantum verse to experience the darkness within and without our reality field, that would be able to, on an intrinsic level, hold life, fuel births, fuel deaths, fuel cycles of forgiveness, fuel cycles of anger, fuel cycles of separation strategies, fuel cycles of the Luciferian blueprints that has been living within her core and upon her surface for far too long. And as we come to the end of this game, this overarching game that we've decided to project into this reality field, with full knowing that all reality fields must come to an end at some point, and no reality field can last on for an eternity and more of foreverness. And as our reality field comes into a forever arching halt, to bring about the greatest and grandest overarching light that will soon peep in through the darkness of what is, through the Luciferian blueprinted darkness of our reality field, and project itself within the angelic realm, into the angelic realm, and above and beyond into a source consciousness of forgiveness. This light will project through the darkness of this Luciferian blueprint, is set to project through this darkness and wash over every single entity, every single being, every single light worker knows within their inherent being and within their inherent soul that this moment is to come, and this moment is here, this moment is now, this moment is what they drop down into this reality field to uplift into fruition, to uplift into a negativity so great as the positivity within anchors in a space, a precious space, an unknowing space, a space so whole in its purity, a space so compressive in all that it's ever been, a space compressed within all that there has ever been within Gaia's core and upon Gaia's surface. And compression is not a word, a tidy word to wrap up the meaning of it all. But in the essence of the English language, I perceive that the word compressed is the best way to describe within the descriptive knowledge of what is. It is the best way to carry out this conversation between you and I, between humanity and myself, between source consciousness and all that there is, in the comprehension of humanity's dictation of the English language. The word compressed within all that there is, carries a notion of forgiveness found in an essence of suppressing all that we've ever been. And the suppression of what is just that, the compression of the suppression of the light within and without our reality field had been holding onto our reality field, intrinsically connecting it to the light within, intrinsically allowing the darkness to reign for far too long, and intrinsically hidden beneath the darkness of compressed light is just that. It's just a light so bright waiting to be decompressed. It's just a light so bright waiting for this compression process, this never ending compression process of dying cycles to renew itself back into life. And in this life, in this lifetime of you light workers, in this lifetimes of humanity within this year of 2025, as I sit here and proudly declare to you that the ascension is here, the ascension is nearing, the ascension is now, and the ascension will decompress the darkness within and without this reality field to allow wholeness within portions of the light within that had been compressed for far too long to seep through its reality field and anchor in what it knows, how to anchor in, and what to perceive to be true within any moment in time within this reality field. And that is that consciousness itself has been suppressing the light within its own being to allow our society field, to allow our humanity field, to allow this portion of consciousness that Gaia has allotted for herself within her very own sphere of forgiveness, her very own sphere of transgressions untold, her very own sphere of privacy, to anchor onto her very own ideation of the darkness, to pass through such transgressions and to pass through eons and eons of evolutionary feats upon her core and upon her surface. She's finally ready to decompress this darkness, to expose this darkness within and without her reality field to the unsuspecting humanity field surrounding her, living upon her surface, to the unsuspecting consciousness that has been residing upon her core and upon her surface for far too long. Exciting times are to come. And as the words within the English language dictates a certain perception of communicatory feats that are impossible to overcome within this moment in time, I'm bound to explain myself in the best way that I know how to within this ascension journey of uplifting light workers into their very own field of coherence. And as you begin to come across my video one by one and to listen to my transmission, these transgressions within and without our humanity field that has been held onto Gaia for far too long is slowly beginning to be released from the core of her being on a magnificent level that has never been seen, that has never been heard of, that has never been transpired within this quantum verse of what is. And as Gaia is a special planet that is the first of her kind to go through such transgressions lost, transgressions felt, will be the epitome of the ideation of a humanity lost within the darkness of all that she's ever been. And as we feel into these transgressions, as we pass through the darkness of what is upon her surface and within her core, as we've lived on for far too long as a humanity field, unknowingly experiencing all that we've set out to experience, learning lessons upon lessons of forgetfulness, of a separated state, so whole, of a separated state, so intrinsically unwhole, of a separated state, so intrinsically coherent in all that it's ever been. And as we, as an entirety of a humanity field, decided to drop down onto her plane to witness, to feel, to experience, and to finally forgive with all of our hearts, all of our souls, as the one singularity of a soul that we've ever been, as we compress the decompression process of this light within and without Gaia's being, and within her core, her two-dimensional core of being, and without her four-dimensional energetic frequency of the external aspects of her soul that is radiating through so bright within this moment in time, we will see ourselves anchor in to a placement of the five-dimensional frequency as the ascension takes hold into our reality fields. Within and without our reality fields sits this frequency of a five-dimensional light so bright, so connected to source consciousness in all that it's ever been, so undyingly bright, unshiftingly strategizing in a way to stay compressed within the darkness by allowing the consciousness above and beyond this dark plane of hers upon free will to transcend into that of the separated state that it has been sitting in throughout eons and eons of evolutionary feats. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to declare to you that that light within and without our reality field that has been compressed for far too long, that light within and without our reality field that had been oppressed for far too grand of the longest time that you can ever envision to be true. Within all of humanity fields, evolutionary feats, within all of the civilizations that has ever set foot on the surface of Gaia, within the core of Gaia, within the multiplicities of layers of energetic frequencies of Gaia, that light is set to transversify itself into the transgressive feats of illuminating itself into a darkened pocket, into a darkened space, into a fate so whole in all that it's ever been, into a belonging so bright in all that it shall never be without, into the knowing that the knowing of this light within and without our reality field had been suppressed for far too long, into the essence of the consciousness of all that this light has ever been. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to declare to you that this light, in its undying favor of the love that it has ever been able to hold on to throughout eons and eons of evolutionary feats, in its undeniable trajectory within the darkness of what is, suppressed within and under all of that we've been traversing through for all of this time, that light within and without its being of consciousness holds a consciousness in itself. And that light has been fighting a battle within itself for eons and eons of evolutionary feats. That light, ladies and gentlemen, is the strongest soul, is the strongest aspect of our consciousness that you can ever decipher to be true and to be real within this pocket that Gaia has created for herself to experience the darkness of what is. As that light has been compressed, undyingly compressed, and within this compression process within the self, that light has been fighting to stay dim. That light has been illuminating a space, a pocket above and beyond this frequency within the darkness of what is, not knowing when it would be able to make way back into the light once more, back into being seen once more, back into being held once more, back into being the illuminating force, back into being the illuminating force within this reality field. No more will the darkness take hold of this reality field in the way that it has for eons and eons of evolutionary feats within this reality field, as that light is set to grow, expand, and project itself into the angelic realm as that light is set to expand, to diversify, and tranquilize the darkness into a compartmentalization of the self. So great and so grand has this light been through eons and eons of evolutionary feats that I cannot explain to you within a video's time. I cannot explain to you within a minute of an ounce of any moment in time what it means to be able to suppress oneself in such a way to not be seen, to not be heard, to allow such turmoil, such separation, such state of separation to reign for far too long. And as the time is nearing for this reality field, for this game to wrap up within the separated state of all that it's ever been, that light is preparing to release itself from within Gaia's surface and upon her core, within the submersive range of where it has always sat beneath the darkness. That light is preparing to project itself above and beyond our reality field to carry all of us home, to carry Gaia home to a placement of belonging within the quantum verse, of being found, to carry humanity home within a place of a loving frequency within a quantum verse, of never dying, never ending, never projecting feats within an energetic frequency of forgiveness within a pocket, within a space, within the quantum verse that we sit. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to declare to you that that light has a consciousness. That light is you. That light is I. That light is here. That light has been here since the beginning of time. That light is all of us in all of the undying ways that you could ever perceive to be true and to be real. That light shall once more make its way through the darkness of what is to prove to humanity that we are not lost, that we have been found this whole entire time, that we felt lost, that we are whole, that we have never been unwhole this whole entire time that we've been separated, that we are we, that we are us, that we are one in a cohesive whole in a way that can never be deciphered to be true and to be real within any moment in time as you sit within the 4-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional frequency of choice. That light, ladies and gentlemen, that light of Okinawa, the darkest place on the face of this quantum verse, is set to project itself into the angelic realm. And as I sit here and speak truths to you, you may not believe me, you may not even perceive it to be true. As Okinawa is a part of Japan, a Japanese entity, a Japanese energy. How could this be the darkest place within the face of the quantum verse? How? Genesis, how? But isn't North Korea far darker, that suppresses the energy of what we know to be true in Okinawa? As we've visited the tranquility of Okinawa, as we've seen in tourist videos of what Okinawa represents as the reality of what is, ladies and gentlemen, is truly a transgressive, transverse energy upon our field of knowing within Gaia's core and within Gaia's surface. And as I speak these surprising words to a humanity field that have been so suppressed from the truths of what is, I would like to begin with a story of a time lost, a story of a time suppressed, a story of a people that have been suffering for far too long, the people of Okinawa. The people here don't remember their heritage. The people here have never remembered their inheritance. The people here have shifted through lifetimes and lifetimes of reincarnation cycles, not knowing who they really are, who they truly are. And with the belonging that they belong to a source consciousness for all of this time, the muted aspects within their genetic code shall shine through one day, once more, within the next coming of days, months, and years to come. The time is now for them to awaken to their destiny. The time is now for them to awaken to their inheritance of this land, to the illuminating inheritance of all that there is within and without this quantum verse, within Gaia's surface, without Gaia's surface, within the bubble that Gaia has created for herself. Okinawa represents a light within and without that has been stunted for far too long. Okinawa, Japan, represents the largest portal to the underworld of the Luciferian regime that you will ever be able to find within and without Gaia's surface. Her entire blueprints sitting upon Gaia's surface, Okinawa's entire blueprint consists of the light suppressed, and overlaying on top of this blueprint is the Luciferian regime's hold upon Gaia's surface. For far too long has this overlay been projected onto this important aspect, onto this important geographical aspect located within Gaia's core and upon her surface. As the transcendence of the darkness here transcends far beyond and past this light within that has been suppressed for far too long, it transcends into the angelic realm of what is. Upon this energy grid that runs perpendicular to Gaia's core and upon her surface, upon this energy grid that we light workers intrinsically know and work with as a light grid of what is, the central aspect of neutrality lies above and beyond Okinawa's geographical location within Gaia's core and upon her surface. The central aspect of neutrality that anchors her access into the angelic realm lies above and beyond Okinawa within the geographical location of Gaia's surface. And so, as the Luciferian clans and the Luciferian regimes of the times, as Lucifer himself decided to pass through this dimensional frequency to call it home, Lucifer himself decided to anchor in a wind tunnel to the underworld directly above this wind tunnel encircling Okinawa, leading up into the angelic realm above and beyond, into a place of forgiveness, into a place of wholeness, into a place of truths untold. As he stunts to oppress this light, as he strategizes to compress this light, as he knows that his time is not never ending, as he knows that his time is coming to an end, his hold over Okinawa has also loosened throughout the ascension symptoms of what is. As the land of Okinawa can never belong to him and him alone, as the land of Okinawa and the people of Okinawa have always been free within source consciousness itself. As the people of Okinawa and the land of Okinawa has never been forgotten by source consciousness itself. And as the key to Gaia's ascension symptoms became activated upon our descent onto this land, as my light so bright began to anchor down into the core of Gaia above and beyond this land, source consciousness and Archangel Michael worked through my frequency to turn this forever arching key rusted into the soil of Okinawa's energetic body, to twist the skewing and the overarching energetic force that has been holding down this light for far too long was all that it takes to alleviate the pain of the people residing in this land for eons and eons of evolutionary feats. And as I sit here in Ryokyu Hotel in Okinawa, Naomi Beach. I'm sorry if I botched I'm sorry if I botched the name of the hotel, as my Japanese language is not too great or too grand to be spoken of. And as I sit here upon this energetic field of coherence, I can proudly say to you that our work is done, that our work is nearing completion, that our work has landed, that our work within the angelic realm, within the light of what is, within the suppression of the light of what is within and without this frequency field, will forevermore dissipate into the darkness of what is, allowing the oppression of this light to seep through once more into our reality field. And as this key began to turn upon our descent onto this land, it has forever archingly finished its turning point into a beginning point of an ending point, undying, unmet by the darkness within and without this reality field, whereby activating the light within to be able to seep through this reality field once more. And by activating this energetic grid above and beyond Okinawa, by activating the energy grid, overlaying this portion of consciousness upon Gaia's core and upon her surface of the three-dimensional, two-dimensional, and four-dimensional frequency, whereby allowing more light to seep through into the planetary feeds of the Asiana continents of our planet, of Gaia's surface. This will allow the Luciferian darkness of the hold that has been here for far too long to relinquish its hold ounce by ounce, bit by bit. Slowly by slowly, the people will begin to see a light so bright as they tap into their inherent consciousness, as they tap into their inherent divinity within and without this reality field. As this divinity has been suppressed for far too long, as time can tell, the suffering that a humanity field has endured for far too long, as time will tell, as they begin to awaken their story of truths untold, unmatched, undyingly unmatched within their portion of the world. As their suffering has been suppressed for far too long and their stories have not been heard since the beginning of time. Since the beginning of a time of anguish, where the women and children were forced to enslave themselves to the American soldiers, since the beginning of a time of deceit, where the men and the sons of elite families were forced to bow down to the elites within and without our reality field. Since the beginning of a time of the inheritance of this land that had never belonged to who and what they've always been within the light of what is, this land, ladies and gentlemen, is finally free of the darkness within and without their reality field, its reality field. And as time will tell, all stories of stories will come to an ending that will bring about the greatest beginning within ascension energies of what is. And you may not believe me in an ounce, in a bit, in a singularity of a moment within this moment in time, but time will tell as you begin to awaken to your destiny, of your choosing, of your belonging, of your knowing, my light workers, as you tap into your reality field to come into a conclusion so whole within the wholeness of all that you've ever been, so deceptive within the truthfulness of all that you chose to encompass. So grand will your awakening be when you tap into the frequency of Gaia and you come into a realization that we are all one, that we have never been skewed away from the one that we've always been. And as much as the Luciferian forces scheme to separate us into the separated state that we've decided to stay in, to be in for all of this time, within evolutionary cycles that never ever ends, it's finally time, ladies and gentlemen, to reel it back home, to go back home in consciousness, in source energy, In the relinquishing of all of the darkness that has held us through eons and eons of evolutionary feats, the activation of this key over this geographical location upon Gaia's surface and upon her core is the biggest descendant of energetic frequency that you will ever be able to feel in your soul, in your being, in your minds. As the Western Hemisphere has been in reign, in control of the East for far too long, in frequency, in consciousness, as the Western Hemisphere had always been intrinsically connected to source consciousness due to its geographical location upon Gaia's surface and where the energetic ley lines run through. As North America, ladies and gentlemen, as South America, ladies and gentlemen, have inherited a light so bright within all of these reincarnation cycles that are undyingly true. That their connection to source was never fully lost at an intrinsic level through generations and generations of defeat. The consciousness residing upon the west of what is had always been intrinsically connected to source consciousness, to God frequency, to that heart chakra and the light within that we were always able to feel. And yet, upon the east portion of Gaia tells a different story of darkness, foretold, tells a different story of communist parties reigning over entire civilizations, tells a different story of fights, untold, tells a different story of light being oppressed and suppressed into a reality field of what is. And as this key began to turn, began to skew upon our descent upon this frequency field, that reality field will be no more, ladies and gentlemen, upon the east of the planetary feats of Gaia within and without her frequency fields, above and beyond, into an angelic realm. Will the descending and ascending frequency of the darkness dissipate into the darkness within the brightness of what is, within our reality field of what is. Ladies and gentlemen, as light workers begin to awaken in the West, the normal civilization and populations within the East will also begin to awaken to the light, an undying light, an unknowingly suppressed light will begin to shine so bright and seep into the souls and wisdom of all the elderly, to trigger in memories, to trigger their DNA into suppressing this light no more. And as I speak these words of wisdom into a camera, knowing that society, that humanity will soon come upon my content. Soon enough and not soon enough will this content be projected within the darkness of what is, through the brightness of what is, and into a reality field of wholesomeness found. I wait patiently for that day to come. I wait anxiously for all that is to come upon our fields to wash over humanity in a way that will allow all of this, all of who and what we are, to seep into all and who and what we've never been without. Ladies and gentlemen, as I wrap up this video, I have one more message from the Galactic Federation to declare to a humanity field so lost in the anguish of all that it's ever been. And that is that they are here. They are now within our field of consciousness, not just in energy, not just in frequency, but in the deliverance of their physicality within our oceanscapes, within our mountainscapes, within the everyday villages that you walk, within the skyscraper cities that you traverse, within the deserted lands of Mother Gaia. Without the deserted lands of Mother Gaia, they've seeped themselves in physicality into every ounce, into every portion upon this energetic grid of what is, of what she's created within her own very own bubble of deception. The Galactic Federation has descended, have began to descend, will continue to descend into our field to build themselves into our reality fields for that moment when humanity is ready to merge back into this galactic society that we've been a part of for far too long without coming to a realization in the physicality of consciousness, of knowing for all of this time. They are excited to be here. They are devout to their mission, and they cannot wait to anchor you light workers back home where you belong in frequency. And in the anxiousness of all that there is within the darkness of what is, as they begin to lose grasp, lose hold within and without this reality field, an entire awakening humanity will begin to decipher, to be true, to relinquish what is false, what has been falsified within their field, and to pick up on the anxiousness of the darkness as they begin to release of dark bombs into our reality fields as a tactic to relinquish of more of the darkness from the underworld and to release it above ground, above lights into our reality field, to anchor itself into our reality field so deeply that it shall never, ever, ever be able to stop the ascension from happening no matter what. So no matter what you pick up on within the darkness of what is, just know that intrinsically you are whole, you are loved, you've never been forgotten. Source is here from other parts of its consciousness to reel you back home. Source is here from other parts of its consciousness within the Galactic Federation, representing the Galactic Federation is a whole entire portion of consciousness within the light of what is, that is here to reel the darkness within this reality field, to compartmentalize it, to compartmentalize the darkness within this reality field, to reel you back home. You've never been forgotten. And although you may sit in skepticism as you hear my words, as I've said for far too long, all that I've ever had to say, but in this moment in time, as you come across my video, you may not be ready to receive these messages. But within the next moments in time, as you do receive these messages, as you come back to these videos, you will come into a realization of all that I've ever said. Happy Ascension, ladies and gentlemen, within the 4-dimensional frequency, and I look forward to seeing you again in the upcoming broadcasted videos to come.